Good evening and welcome to the Star Chamber Show live podcast. It is a great evening here in Lexington, Kentucky, where I, Stephen Zimmer, am broadcasting from. And we've got a great show for you tonight. We've had a run of great shows. So if you've missed any of our previous episodes, please do check them out, whether on our main platform, Podbean, or, of course, you can check them out on all the main platforms like Spotify and Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, and YouTube, and all those kind of places. So tonight, yes, I will be joined by the lovely, the vivacious, the audacious, and the loquacious Holly Phillippe here in just a couple of minutes. She is working right now to get on the air, so she'll be joining us just momentarily. The chat room is open, and it looks like we got a good group coming in here already. Want to give a shout out to Recovery Unplugged. We also have award-winning screenwriter and author Carol Preflatish, and a big shout out to the man himself from Iowa, Joe Eisenberg. Yes, one of the lovable lemurs of the West. And yes, you'll be seeing them at Imaginarium. It's going to be a lot of fun. And so, yes, the chat room is open, so please do come in and check it out. So tonight I do have a few updates for you, just a few, because of course, we don't have a lot of guests or new programming to share with you for Imaginarium from the past week, and that's because we have a very big news break tonight. We have announced the first batch of official selections for the Imaginarium 2025 Film Festival. That just went public just a couple of hours ago. And so, yes, you're getting the news pretty fresh here on the Star Chamber Show. And we're really excited because both myself and Drew Graber, we are acting as co-directors of the film festival side, can assure you this is an amazing group of people that are in our film festival this year. It's been getting better every year. It has just taken a step forward every single year, and this year is definitely no exception. We're definitely on the way to bringing you the best film festival yet, and that is evidenced by the first 25 official selections. I do want to note, though, that these selections are it's not comprehensive by any means. We will continue to announce official selections throughout May into early June, with a portion of our screening shots that are left open for consideration of entries on our May 30th late deadline. So this is with the visual projects. We also have, of course, our screenplays, which are acknowledged in both the Imagine Awards and the Film Festival, and the finalists for those will also be announced in early June once that final deadline has hit, the late deadline. But yes, we will be announcing a large portion of our screening slots for the Imaginarium 2025 Film Festival. And you're going to recognize a lot of folks here. And before I do get into that, though, Holly has joined me. Looks like she's live. Hey, Holly.
Hello. I am here. I had some
You
kitty
caught me.
issues I had to take care of before I got on here, but our
Oh,
kitty
no.
cats.
Cats. But you made it just in time to hear the list, first group of 25 official selections. So you made it just in time. And I think, Holly, you'll recognize a few of these names. So,
Okay.
so here we
All right.
go. Now,
Okay.
the first group that I will announce are our international selections, because we have both an international and domestic categories. So from the international arena, we have Third Eye and director Richard Phillippe, short film out of the United Kingdom. Then we have Baron Munchausen from Ilya Noyabrev, and this is a short film from Ukraine. Then we have Closed Gates from Naresh Kumar Rajendran, and this is a short film out of India. We have Chroma Escope, episode 2, from director Alvaro Beltran James, and this is a web series out of Spain. Sonata in D, director Craig Urquhart, short film from Canada. The Other Me, Naima Chebahai. Hope I pronounced that right. Tough. Some of these are tough to pronounce, so I apologize if I don't get them perfect. But this is a short film based out of France. And then What is Love? And this is from directors Martina Herzog and Reinhard J. Steiner. And this is a documentary out of Switzerland. So those are all official selections out of the international category. And now out of the domestic category, we have After the Deluge, a short film by Tara Young. Break Room, a short film by director Ian Wang. We also have the music video Broken Wing from Herschel Zond. We have Cattywampus from director Matt Long, a short film. We have Come Out Wherever You Are by Caitlin Pressburg, and that is a short film. Don't Talk About It from Tejon Bumphus, and that is a short film. Ever There, a short film from director Daniel Grace. Then we have Greek Philosophia and Chickens from director Amiende Negbanabor Sela, and that is a short film. On the music video front, we have Hate Me from Letters to Daniel, and that is from director Amy Lee McCorkle, who was also, by the way, chosen as our featured writer for Writer Wednesday, Imaginary at Writer Wednesday. Congratulations to Amy on both of those things. Inner Space from director Josue Hilario, and that is a short film. Then we have Method, a voice actor prepares from Jessica Renslow, short film. Paragenics Season 2 from directors Dominic Miller, Darrell Miller, and Christian Griffith, and that is a web series. Quarantine from director Russ Emanuel, that is a short film. Sleep Demon from Austin Robert Sheehan, short film. Then we have Table Chatter from Kristen Korkowski, and that is a short film. We have The Anniversary, a short film from directors Kayla Perkins and Ben Hicks. We have The Companion, a short film from director Thomas Moore. We have The Root from director Courtney Lee Simpson, a short film. And that rounds it out for the first batch. So we will have more official selections being announced very shortly. And as you notice, most of the things were short films. So yes, of course, with a lot more in that field that's being evaluated. We also have, of course, features and web series, music videos, and documentaries. So there's a lot more to go. So yes, a lot more will be added to that list. That is just an initial group of official selections. And definitely hope you check all of these filmmakers and projects out, because there's some real gems in this batch. So there you go, Holly. There's the first wave. It's official.
Fantastic. I know quite a few of those, and I'm
Yes.
congrats to all. And yeah, good luck. Good luck with winning. Yes, there's some tough competition out there. So if you made it to the
Yep.
finals, you're doing good.
Yep. It gets
You're
harder and
doing great
harder. Yeah, because
every year.
we keep getting more submissions, and also the general field of the quality in the field. You
Yeah.
see big strides in it. The production values and the kind
Oh
of
yeah.
filmmakers that are submitting their projects, people that are
Leaps
winning a
and
lot,
bounds.
lot of awards on the circuit, are sending their films in. And so yes,
And
yeah,
I
it's going up.
love that the outreach that we have grown to the international part too, because we get
Mhm.
people from all over the world, and it's just amazing to see that grow every year.
Well,
Very,
just
very
there,
exciting.
just in the first group, you're talking Ukraine, India,
Yeah.
Spain, Canada, France, Switzerland, and the United Kingdom. I mean, yeah, I mean,
That's
literally
awesome.
from all over the world. And yeah, we are an international event. We've got a vendor coming in from Israel, so yeah,
Never do.
we keep growing on the international front, which is pretty cool.
It
And
is.
and one of the cool things, I think, Holly, that we're doing this year is that Drew and I are really going to focus with even more. Is we started to play with the concept last year,
Yeah.
but for some of the regional filmmakers that are in the region around Imaginarium, we are going to do more indie spotlighting and showcasing of projects that don't necessarily make the official selection cut. So they're not official selections in terms of the juried awards, but we do want to encourage the filmmakers, give them a spotlight, give them a screening, and give them a chance to be a part of the festival anyway. And so, yes, we're going to be doing that, expanding that a little bit more for the
Mhm.
Sunday Indie Filmmaker Showcase that we're going to be
And
doing. So, yeah,
premieres.
yes, and premiere. So we're going to
Mhm.
be announcing.
Mhm.
So we're going to be announcing some folks that, yeah, while they
Uh-huh.
didn't necessarily get named official selections, we do see a lot of promise with them, up and coming filmmakers, and we want to definitely give them a spotlight. And so yeah, there's going to be some good stuff in that showcase as well. But that'll be announced a little bit later. The people that are in that, we still obviously haven't finished with the official selection designations. So that'll take over the course of the next month. So there you go. Any updates from you before we recognize the folks that brought us tonight's show?
I don't have my laptop in
Anything
front
you?
of me, but I did
Okay.
add. I added. I added a panel. But for the life of me, I've been so buried in programming that I don't even know. I do know I worked out, and I will have more details next week. But we are going to have a Victorian tea party
Oh,
on
yes. That's
that
going to be awesome.
Sunday with um, Captain Jen, Jennifer Norin. She's going to be
Mhm.
running this and putting this on, and the queen bee herself, as she is so delightfully called. Um, it's gonna be so cool. We have a sponsor, which I will go more into next week. That's
Yes,
going to
great
be giving
sponsor.
us some great teas
Uh-huh.
that she's sponsoring to this event. She's also going to sponsor enough teas to fill our 100 swag bags that
For
we
the
give
first
out.
100. Yeah, for the first 100.
Yes,
Yeah.
the first 100, which is going to be very cool. And then we're going to have another sponsor that we're talking to that's looking into doing the snacks, and then we have another sponsor that's looked into doing the plates and the cups and all that good stuff. So it's going to be really interesting when it all comes together. But yeah, I'm going to hold it 3 o'clock on that Sunday. It's only going to be available to 20 people. There will be a sign up, pre-sign up, to give you a chance to jump on it. And then if I don't hit the 20 mark, it is free. It's going to be free because I'm getting it sponsored. That way, there's no cost to the attendees. It's something I'm going to do nice for you all. I thought it'd be really cool. It's the last day of the convention, and I thought it'd be, just a neat way for people to gather and chit chat and everything before, the end of the day and the con. So, if we don't hit the 20 pre convention, I will bring this sheet to the registration desk, and people can sign up there.
Excellent. So there you go, folks. You got a good scoop on the tea party that's going to be
You
taking
got
place
I
on that Sunday.
spilled the tea.
You spilled the tea. Very good, very good. And hold on to those Victorian ideas here in just a minute because that's going to factor into our
Uh-huh.
guest when I talk about our guest in just a moment. But first, I got to definitely spotlight the folks that brought you tonight's show. That wonderful fellow Ren Garcia with his League of Elders series, and Sandy Lender, the genre blender, with her outstanding nonfiction motivational book. So we'll give you Ren first, and then we'll go over to Sandy. But here's first is Ren.
The League of Elder dares to be unusual. It's easy to be swept away in this bold and uninhibited landscape where fantastic heroes become old friends and sinister villains inhabit every dark corner. Dare to explore things best left alone. Each book is your lantern, lighting the path to a world never before seen. So what do you say? Are you weird enough for us?
And as we
Oh,
always say,
indeed we are, Ren Garcia. Yes,
we
indeed we
are.
are.
And yes, we are working on him. Holly is on it. So he'll keep you posted. It's the ongoing quest that we keep you posted on. But yes, we're still working on getting Ren down here this summer. But here's a little bit from Sandy. And definitely, this is one book to definitely pick up. It's a good one.
Are you a creative person working a 9 to 5 job to survive? Let's look at how to keep your energy and joy alive with the new motivational business book, Capture Your Dream, from author Sandy Lender. In Capture Your Dream, Sandy offers stories, lessons, inspiration, SWOT analysis, goal stacking strategies, and more to help you map your plan to achieve a dream job or side hustle. As a creative herself, Sandy knows it takes compromise and commitment to keep the day job to survive while chasing the dream to thrive. Assess your dragon score. Learn more about Capture Your Dream at author.sandylender.com.
And thank you, Sandy Lender, who we affectionately call the genre blender because she writes so well in so many genres and cross genre fiction. So, yes, thank you very much, Sandy. And so, yes, we are right on time for our guests. So, yeah, it's great when we're actually on time. We always love to be on time, folks. And so, yes, we're going to go right into our introduction. So, tonight's guest is a scholar, an editor, and a creative writer. She has published, presented, and collaborated academically and in the mainstream on topics ranging from the sciences to the humanities, with a main focus on philosophic approach to literature from 1850 to 1950, with a special attention to what it means to be a human, an American, and a woman. Her most recent contributions have been to the Middle West Review, the Southern Humanities Review, and After Dinner Conversation. So it is my honor and privilege to bring on to the Star Chamber Show for the first time, and hopefully the first of many times to come, the wonderful Noelle Canty. And Noelle, your microphone is on, and welcome to the show.
Hi, Stephen. Hi, Holly. It's wonderful to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Hello. Of
We're
course.
Yeah, we're glad to have you. And
Yes.
yes, and Holly told me all about you, and I've learned a little bit about you by reading up on you, and been looking forward very much to our conversation tonight. And I know Holly is too, because some of your interests overlap in the Victorian era, which is right up Holly's
Yes.
alley. So
Yes.
we're definitely glad to have you on the show. And but first, for our audience, since this is your first time on the show, if you would just talk a little bit about yourself and the kind of things that you're into.
Sure. Thanks for that open-ended question. I think there's so many things that, you can get interested in as someone who has a historical bent, an artistic bent. I would say that one of my biggest delights is experimenting with form. So whether you're doing something that's nonfiction or fiction or poetry or spoken word or editing for someone, there's so many different ways that you can convey a piece of information. So in addition to being interested in the content, I'm really interested in how can I really get my clients' ideas across? How can I get my own ideas across? How do these ideas make me feel? How does the client feel when they're writing through this? One thing that I'm really interested in is how do you keep writer's block from happening? It's such a common thing, especially when people are doing um, 9 to 5 jobs in addition to creative writing, in addition to reading a whole ton. So I kind of am interested in, I don't know, sort of like philosophy of mind, I suppose.
Oh, that's
That's neat
definitely.
that
Yeah.
you bring up the writer's block aspect because we talk about writer's block a lot on the podcast. Um, some people believe in it, some people don't. They say, you're not blocked. You just need to write. Sit down and write. It'll come or it won't. But just sit and write a sentence every day, just as long as you write. But I I believe in true block because I experience it, right? And it's because I am not disciplined enough. For one thing, it's my fault. Okay? So
Mm,
it is completely my fault. If I would make time to, have a quiet place and focus and really zone myself in, I'd get it on the paper. But with life happens, right? And we're
right.
pulled here, there, and everywhere, and it's difficult.
Yeah,
So
attention is one
yeah,
of those things that requires so much practice.
Hmm.
it does, and that's what I was going to ask you. What's some of your suggestions?
Well, I think one thing that's really important is to individualize whatever is being done. I feel like everyone has their own values and their own set of factors to deal with, whether it's kids or how long their commute is, or family matters or health matters. Um, all of this, I feel like a person needs to feel that they themselves are capable of deciding. Like they've got the power to eventually sort those things out. And what my job is to do, I think, is to help them realize what those values actually are. And the problem with anyone who's in a coaching, teaching role, I think, is trying not to impose one's own values onto the student slash client's values. So I think that's actually one of the amazing things about being a teacher, a coach, someone who has facility with words, and such a big responsibility and ethical responsibility, really, to give people the ability to have their own voice instead of imposing one's voice on there, to kind of give them the talents that they need or the toolbox that they need to simply prioritize and then have confidence once they do that.
Right. And which is a great segue into your editing, because you also edit at ADC, and I'd like to hear more about that. But it also overlaps what you were saying with the discipline is the editing, because you don't want to you don't want to impose your own values or your own word upon the author. You want to keep the author's voice, you know, and it's difficult. It's a difficult process because there's a lot of times you think, oh, but I would say it this way, and it would, be so much better, even though it has nothing to do with the grammar or the, anything like that. I mean, it's fine the way it is, but your own voice in the back of your head's going, oh, but I want to do it this way, and you got to pull back some. So that's a good segue into, you want to talk about your editing process.
Sure. I find editing really fascinating actually as an abstract because, especially in these days where we have the written word on a computer screen, on a tablet, it's even more abstract than it would be if it were on a physical page. So, back when 15 years ago, I don't know, when there was a physical page, you could physically point to a section and have the person read aloud to you in order to get them to do the reading comprehension, in order to get them to think through it for themselves. But with a touch screen, especially, where if you touch it, it will minimize the screen, it will maximize the text, any sorts of things could happen. It kind of encourages this even bigger disembodiment, where the text kind of takes on this zombie like life of its own that's separate from the writers. So, something that I am really interested in is, at least back when I was doing in person editing, at this point, I'm doing a little bit more online based editing. But with in person editing, it's so important to get someone to read it aloud, even if they can't trace the words with their fingers. Just even having that confidence to think, what I put on the page, it might not be the greatest, but the person who's helping me with this can listen to it and they're not going to judge me for how it sounds.
Yeah, I
That's
think it.
perfect.
Yeah, and I think it's a great technique. Yeah, when you hear your work out loud, because it always brings out ways to make dialogue better, and the flow and the pacing and the beats in some prose. I mean, you definitely reading it on the screen is one thing, but yeah, when you have the ability to hear it read back to you, or something read to you, you definitely hear where your improvement should be. That's a great technique, and because I've advised that myself, working as an editor and author coach too, and I think that's just something I definitely wanted to second on that. But what type of clients? I'm just curious. What type of clients do you currently work with? I mean, what type of writers are they? Are they fiction, nonfiction? What kind of genres are the ones that you're currently working with, or students?
Currently, I've been working on switching out some things, trying to switch in some new things. So I don't have a whole ton on my plate at the present besides my volunteering for after dinner conversation, which I can happily talk about as well. Sometimes I do
Yes.
continue to work with people, even after I've done the initial glance over their story. So basically, with after dinner conversation, I started maybe 2, 3 years ago. I'm one of the people who's been on the staff longest. It's an entirely volunteer run magazine, it's a nonprofit. But somehow recently it rose to the ranks to be number 1 on Chill 7, maybe 3 different categories in a couple years. So
Nice.
we'll be at 0 stories. We'll have all the readers going through the stories rapid fire, and then we think we're done with the stories. But then 2 days later, there are, I don't know, 100 stories, and I'm not exaggerating.
Hmm?
So, yeah, it's a little bit of a wild ride because things are changing so quickly there. But what I really appreciate about editing is that because each of the stories has to have an ethical dimension, basically it's fiction, but there has to be enough questions in it to be 5 questions at the end of the story for people to discuss after dinner casually in a non-political, non-aggressive context, so they can
Nice.
kind of understand their values a little bit better and really in an affable way. So when the writers send in the story, thankfully, it's not quite as abstract or limp spaghetti noodle as some types of fiction tend to be, where automatically you're looking for the point or you're looking for some excitement and nothing really happens or too many things happen. Already
Mhm.
there's a sort of backbone to it because for whatever reason, they're about 2,000 to 3,000 words per story. That's just how these ethical short stories seem to work. 2,000 to 3,000 words. And then you usually need to have the ethical dilemma starting from the first page. You need to have it pretty much clearly stated through the circumstances because, again, we're doing showing, not telling. So that requires a lot of technique as well. So by the second page, you need to have that showing of the question, and then gradually through pages 5, 6, 7, 8, these different factors tend to come up. So maybe on the second page, the reader, the writer is thinking, I don't know how I would solve this. And then the other factors keep on piling on top of the character until they finally have to make a decision. Sometimes you get to see the consequences of the decision. Other times you're kind of left with the impact of knowing the character still has to make this decision and it's going to change their life radically. So with After Dinner Conversation, each of the stories that we publish, because we only publish 6 stories a month and we get so many of them, you really have to have an understanding, at least by instinct, if not having studied the structure the way I have to kind of understand how this stuff works, of how the basically how the coat hangs on the hanger.
Now now I love it. Now I get the after dinner conversation. What
Yes, the
the actual name
concept.
means, the concept. So yes, that is great. And but one question I did want to ask you with all the stories focusing on like an ethical dimension or ethical questions, and those kind of themes. How do you work with writers as far as getting them to avoid becoming too preachy? And because we all have read stories that where an author's kind of beating you over the head with their message, and sometimes sometimes some of the best work is more subtle. And so how do you help
Yeah,
writers navigate?
because a lot of times, Stephen, I don't mean to interrupt you, but
Go ahead.
like you said, they're beating you over the head with their values, but you
Right,
got to get them to pull back enough because the greatest ethical stories are written to where they make you question your own humanity,
right.
which they're and that's the brilliant stories. So I can imagine how hard that is.
Yeah, and how do you work with writers on that to avoid becoming too heavy-handed?
Of course, first I have to acknowledge I don't know how many times I've written in the comments section for other readers and for the overall editor to see this story is didactic. I don't think we can take it. Then, second, as far as technique for avoiding didacticism, I
Mhm.
would say that character is really pivotal in the writer's relationship to the character. Usually there's one main character, sometimes there are two, but if the author is really always affirming, especially after the character says something or does something, the character's actions, then that tends to be where there's a pitfall.
Mhm. Yeah, because and in a short story format, I mean, you really do have to get to things quicker and be more succinct and on target with like, as you said, with one character, maybe two. You don't have that broader ensemble that you can bring into a novel, so it has to be really get to things quickly, but also at the same time not becoming too heavy handed in terms of the themes as you were discussing. But now you, as far as the stories go, do you the back and forth? Do you do a lot of back and forth once you've made a selection out of the larger group of submissions, or how do what's the process at ADC?
So first of all, ADC is always looking for readers, so here's advertising for it.
Yeah, go ahead.
Anyone can
There you go.
email editor@afterdinnerconversation.com and become a reader, which means that you get to, learn the process, learn how to edit, learn what makes a good story a good story.
Hmm.
Um, so during that process, usually there are two people separately who read the story, maybe put some comments down in the space where we do that virtually, and rate the story on a scale of 0 to 3 as far as relevancy or um, and actual literary technique. And then usually, at least when I first started, I tended to be on the same page as reader 2 or reader 1, depending on whether I was the first to get there or not. But then if, like more recently, because we've had a larger pool of readers flocking in with the recent success, people don't agree quite as much. There's a more varied pool. So sometimes we need a third reader, or sometimes Colby, the main editor, will look at his story himself and kind of make an executive decision on that.
Hmm.
And so it's editor at after dinner conversation, correct?
Yes.
Okay. I'm
Nice.
going to put the link in our chat here
Yeah, we'll have to put that on our social media
and our
channels too,
site.
'cause that
Yeah.
yeah, 'cause there's definitely some people that'd be interested in this for sure.
Oh yeah.
And, but I have to bring it up because it's something that both Holly and I were talking about before the show that is very interesting about you, and it segues, from the ethical aspects of, what you're talking about. But you're also the secretary for NOLB, No One Left Behind. And we just think that's really an interesting aspect
Yes.
of your work, and would love for you to give us a little picture about that and what you do as secretary.
Sure. So, No One Left Behind is again a nonprofit. It was formed to help our Afghan allies, basically engineers, translators, who, when the United States withdrew from Afghanistan rather quickly, were left behind. The Taliban actively threatens them. A lot of them cannot leave their
Mhm.
houses, are facing ostracism. So the goal over the past, oh goodness, at this point, it's been basically 5 years, I think.
Yeah,
Mm,
it's
Yeah,
crazy to think about.
yeah. So a lot of people have been, waiting and waiting to get their visas, waiting and waiting to get their interviews, waiting and waiting to get transferred from Afghanistan to maybe Pakistan or Germany to kind of wait in
Mhm.
centers, basically refugee camps, before finally coming to the US. So No One Left Behind has been really pivotal and kind of really truly fulfilling the promises that the United States government made to the people who helped them out while we were getting oil, etc. So something that I really appreciate about what I do at No One Left Behind is that I'm able to use my editing techniques or use my skill with words, um, basically just being a secretary for different small things. But it's still good to feel like I'm making a difference, to be able to summarize things and decide what's important, and be able to sometimes hand on whatever I've summarized based on the activities that were done, to make sure that we are up to date on different, I don't know, moving pieces of an
Mhm.
organization like that, which you can imagine it's humongous.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it definitely involves a lot and a lot of layers, I'm sure, especially you're dealing with different governments and as you said, there's routes, with having to bring them into certain places first before here, and yeah, the complexity definitely sounds like something
Well, and it's
like a
just
challenge. Yeah.
it's so bizarre that it's been that many years and they're still stuck there.
Yeah,
It's just criminal.
yeah,
And
we
yeah,
get
I
a
think
lot of
it's great.
messages from
That
people who have
I
been
think
there.
it's great what
Yeah,
you're doing.
Yeah, and I think that too. Also, it's not just there, but also in other countries we've been in, like Iraq and all. I mean, I'm sure you
Yeah.
have people from other countries too. They're still dealing with some of this as well.
yeah. There's always the issue of, do we want to get more involved with other organizations? What can we all
Mhm.
do to help each other? So other countries, of course, are always on our mind.
And you were
There's a
saying people message you, so
Yeah.
you're actually in contact with these people?
Yeah, not me
Yeah.
specifically at this point, but yeah,
Mhm.
we're in total contact with these people constantly.
Oh, well, thank goodness somebody is, you
Yep.
know. Oh,
Yeah.
Well, I imagine as a writer and editor, though, you are getting some things that you potentially could tell some stories that are, get across some of the stuff that you're working with. I imagine that gives
No
you some
One Left
story ideas.
Behind is amazing at conveying the stories. It regularly posts on LinkedIn and other social media platforms, concrete examples of what a donation can do. So I'm always really impressed with the storytelling ability that's combined with marketing strategies, etc. It takes so much to keep a nonprofit together. I think that's something I've definitely seen with both ADC and NOLB. And a lot of these people are working what feels to me like 24/7. It feels to me like a lot of people are not sleeping because they're just so devoted to it and they love it.
Yep. And obviously there's a little bit of urgency to it, especially when you're in a volatile
Yeah.
country where you're dealing with some, definite pressures, with groups like the Taliban and as you mentioned and things like that. I'm sure there's a little bit of urgency too, but yeah, it sounds like a perfect place for someone like you who is who understands the art of storytelling and conveying ethical considerations and things like that. It sounds like, yeah, you bring the right skill set to be a secretary for this type of organization for sure. And is there a site that you recommend where people can go either donate or become more active in it?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's nolb.org.
Okay.
So I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, we'll have to pass that along as well for sure. But
Yes.
but I know Holly has just been chomping at the bit to get into this area. But the philosophic approach to literature, 1850 to 1950, with attention to being a human American and a woman. I know Holly is going to want to start there in the 1800s. That's her turn. So Holly,
Yeah, that's my
go
time.
ahead.
We have
Go
we
ahead.
have we have three kitties, and I lovable. We named them Prince Albert, Queen Victoria, and then we have Prince
Leopold.
Leopold.
Yeah.
So yeah,
You have kittens after my own heart.
there you
They're all
I
tuxedos. They're all
and I'm
tuxedos.
surrounded by Victoria books, because she's always going to be my favorite queen. I loved Victoria. I wish I could have been, a witness to her reign, which would have been incredible. But yeah,
And a
that
long one
time
too.
period is so liberating and interesting because that's when women actually started to take that turn, and that's where more of your feminist groups come out of, and
Hmm.
women were standing up for themselves more. So yeah, I would like you to touch on that, because you talk about what being a woman and an American at that time, and just being a human and altogether during that time period, the fascinating. Oh gosh, how fast did technology move? I mean, look at that, between 1850 to 1950. I
Massive stuff.
mean,
Yeah.
yeah, just massive leap of everything and
From
culture.
Steam to computers, all in that
Yeah.
time period. Yeah, crazy. Yeah,
The
but
way
So what are your favorite things
yeah,
that
in
involve
literature,
like the women aspect, the female aspect from that time period?
in
What's the most
literature.
fascinating?
Sure. So I think what set the stage for me is really that the 19th century is where the English language became very similar to how it is today. I would say in the 18th century, there's still a lot of syntax issues, still a lot of ways that things were written, particularly the novel, which at that point was still a lot more epistolary and tended to be a moral tale. So again, you've got a lot of didacticism in there, or just
Mhm.
outright licentiousness, which also can be kind of boring. Um, so I think, yeah,
Yep.
I think being able to start with the 19th century where the novel was really taking off. You've got Sir Walter Scott, you've got the Romantics, you've got um, Charlotte Bronte, you've got
Hmm.
Elizabeth Gaskell, you've got George Eliot, you've got like moving into the 20th century, Virginia Woolf. Um, there's so many people who were able to start expressing ideas that we have somewhat in the current day, but it was just a little bit different. And every time you go back a decade, it's just a twist different. And if you keep on twisting and twisting and twisting until you get back to about 1850 or 1800, you start seeing patterns of thought about womanhood and personhood that are entirely different from ours. So I'm really fascinated in how women's consciousness, how women's beliefs about their rights, beliefs about the world change decade by decade.
Yeah,
Holly.
it is fascinating. The leap. Oh, the leap was amazing. And like I said, it really took off, I felt, because of the suffrage movement, right? Which was during
Right.
that time and all those things. These women, these strong women stepped forward, which, I'd have probably been leading the movement, as Stephen knows. But yeah, I'd have
Yes,
been
you
the big old
probably would.
Amazon woman out there because I'm 6'1" too. So I've been the big old Amazon leading this. But yeah, I mean, they really projected their voices, which was amazing because that was a time where only men wrote and only men did these things and voted and only men did be
Mhm.
at home, make your sandwich, woman, and all this stuff. But yeah, you had Mary Shelley who
Yeah.
really come out right out of the
Right.
box. And that was and people loved it. People loved her
Mhm.
story. People found it fascinating because that was the height of the whole mysticism. And that's, Victorians were really interested into life after death and spiritualism and all this. So that heightened, I think, more of the average Joes. Um, it opened their eyes and heightened their um oh not creativity toward it, to write more stories about it, to do more research on it, to I think that really is what sparked the flame,
Hmm.
was that time period. And then whew, we really went off into then the 1950s on. That's when people really got into horror and horror writing, and it took off more, of course. But you had Frankenstein before, you had all these things to base everything off of, which is fascinating. But that also tells a little bit about um, the human mind and the philosophy around things and our curiosity, and curiosity did kill the cat. And I just think it
Hmm.
opened a can of worms that will never be shut again, right?
Right. And I think it's very interesting when women started to write more, it tended
Yes.
to be in the novel format. And by the 1840s, 1850s, um, a lot of male writers resented women for taking
Uh-huh.
up a lot of the market.
Right, because that was their market, right?
Right.
We have a friend of ours in the chat, Mick Williams, a really talented author from good old England there, and he says, "Get those Brit names going."
I can hear him saying it right now.
Yes, get to. I love it. I love it.
Yes, the
Yes, it started there. That's really what sparked, I think, the whole culture. And then over here, it was, what's going on in
well,
1850 here was definitely different to what was going on in 1850 in England, right? So
Right.
yeah,
yeah, there
I,
was a vast
well, I,
difference. And we didn't have the internet, you know.
well,
Hmm.
I think also we get to give a shout out to your heroes, Holly, because Prince Albert and Queen Victoria. I mean, at the time, the British Empire was at arguably the apex of its global strength, and Victoria obviously
The
was the
sun
sovereign,
never
and
set on her. The
Albert
sun never set.
Albert was at her side, but obviously he was a big patron, very open-minded fellow with the
Scientific.
World's
Hmm.
Fair, and things like that. And Victoria obviously was a patron of the artistic side of things, and then this just the simple fact that she was just such a strong sovereign for so many decades. I mean, her reign was second to none, really. And I mean, it was amazing in terms of the length of it. And she, I think that she also, just by her example and the strength of her person, I think also was a bit of a catalyst. I think for a lot of the things that changed over time. I think it definitely had
I
an
agree.
influence on it. I would say so. I had to show some love to your hero there, Holly. Yeah, for sure. Because
So
yeah,
what kind of what kind of published writing do you have, or articles or books or things you're working on that is related to that time period that people can check out?
yeah.
Well, let's see. Sorry for the pause here. I'm kind of
Oh, no
scrolling
problem.
Fine.
through a mental bibliography. is it all right if I talk about some of my more recent things and then I'm pretty sure
Yes,
I'll come to something?
then
Okay.
it'll come. Go right
Absolutely.
ahead. Go right
Go right
ahead.
ahead. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so fairly recently, I wrote a story for After Dinner Conversation.
Uh-huh.
So that was really neat to be able to put all those different ethical pieces into play. Another thing I did fairly recently was write an article about the Midwest for the Middle West Review, which includes a lot of 19th century history. I kind of delve into the history of painting in the Midwest, especially Indiana, and then kind of link it to Midwestern ideals and different patterns I've seen in Midwestern literature about the world. So that was a very meaningful piece for me to write that I think was in the works for a good 10 years, but I only really addressed last year. Um, it was also neat going to library archives and looking at stuff that is specifically related to Indiana and the Midwest, and to really feel like, oh, this is a niche where I might belong. I'm just so interested in what's a place like? What did things look like in Indiana 200 years ago during the Victorian age, before the Victorian age, when there's so many birds that they covered the sky? If you want to talk about James Fenimore Cooper's novels like The
Hmm.
Pioneers, etc. Just the idea that 200 years ago nature was so much more proliferous and at the same time scary, and that people felt like they needed to destroy it to that degree to be able to be safe, and kind of like the human quest for safety, which then turns into, oh, I need to be more secure, and then I need to become more powerful and start influencing other people. And so it's a long journey, but it's the one that a lot of empires, dictatorships, I feel like the spirit of manifest destiny, and continuing to go west as far as you could, that's kind of involved there. I mean, the British Empire is kind of involved in that. Any sort of
Hmm.
politics tends to be towards, oh, well, these people are too extreme, so we're going to be extreme in the opposite direction. So I would say that my sense of place tends to be so historical, specifically because I'm interested in transcending some of the ideological boundaries that we ourselves have imposed or inherited from our culture. And I'm kind of interested in, can I just stand between them? Can I look at both of them at once? Can I hold lots of things in my perspective?
Hmm. And that's not always an easy thing to do. Definitely not. And
No.
yeah, definitely want to have to. I definitely want to read this article or essay from you. Yeah, that sounds really good. And you also had something in the Southern Humanities Review, I think, recently.
Yeah,
Um,
that was a kind of a surprise. I'd been looking to do a book review for someone or something. The editor there suggested a couple of things, and one of them happened to be Jesse Nathan's Egg Tooth, which since I got my review published, it's really exploded in popularity. Jesse's been giving lots of talks across the country, doing poetry readings. So egg tooth, it's basically a metaphor for when a bird emerges from its egg and it uses that special part of its beak basically to chop open from the inside. And it's a really beautiful symbol of rebirth, and at the same time something that's almost as old as recorded history, older than recorded history, a continual reemergence of something in a different form, in a different iteration. So Jesse Nathan's Eggtooth poetry collection really addresses a lot of what it looks like and what it feels like to be in the Midwest. I think a lot of it is a little bit more centered on the Plains Midwest.
mhm.
I'm a little bit more interested in Great Lakes area Midwestern stuff. Lake Michigan fascinates me. It's one of the most beautiful, unusual things in the world, along with the other four Great Lakes that are really more like freshwater inland seas, to be honest. The only
Yeah.
thing somewhat similar is the Mediterranean, but that changed a long time ago when the sea kind of burst in over the border between Spain and Africa. In any case, yeah, he focuses on Great Plains slash Midwestern writing. And if you kind of look at a diagram of how people kind of identify as being Midwestern, the Great Plains still counts. And that's something that I guess I knew instinctively because Willa Cather. But yeah, to see a current person kind of take on ideas like William Cullen Bryant's poems. William Cullen Bryant was basically the first American poet back around 1800, where he has the virgin soil myth. There are only Indians here, and wild animals, and then we kind of had this almost God ordained task to till the land, etc., which in retrospect is a really horrible way to put it, a really horrible way to put genocide. I currently have 2 books from the library for my own research about the Great Lakes and Tecumseh, etc., and to see the difference between the 1940s book about the frontier and the 2020s book about genocide is amazing.
Oh, I'd
But yeah,
imagine.
yeah.
Yeah, there was a whole different take on it in the 1940s. Yeah, yeah, many decades ago. Whole different take than the whole picture look that we have of today. You know.
Yeah, and I'm always being constantly fascinated by, are there more history books that talk about the beginning of an American empire? Because we don't use the word empire, but that's kind of how it works.
Right.
And also about ecology. How do even layers of dirt shift over millions of years? How did we get forests in Michigan that are totally buried and preserved in sand and water over the course of 12,000 years? Why did the ice age affect some parts of the United States not as much as the others? Just so many ideas that have to do with the way that land works and the way that time works. I mean, those are the classic themes for a writer, for any person, even a musician. Time and space. How do you manipulate those in a way that gets a reader or person just experiencing it to experience how you're feeling or how someone else feels?
Yeah, and you get some of the hints actually from some of the real old oral traditions of the indigenous people in America, and I'm part of my heritage is Blackfeet Nation, and so yeah, I love exploring some of that because some echoes of past kind of cataclysmic events are
Uh-huh.
retained in a lot of those old stories and traditions that could relate very well to some of those ecological shifts that you're talking about, and I've come across those often when doing some deep dives into a lot of tribal lore, and
I'd love to get a
yeah,
bibliography from you.
it's definitely some fun stuff, and for sure, and
Yeah,
and
Steve could talk on that for hours.
well, I won't. I promise not.
You and him would have a great chat about all that.
This is Noelle's show, so yes, we're going to stay on topic here always, but 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 it's true though. There's a lot of interesting things that you can look into that have come more to light today because you didn't always have
Hmm.
access to some of those stories before. So that's why I think you have a more nuanced coverage in history and history books today because so much more has come to light. Some things good, some things bad, and and there's definitely a balance there of sorts. But yeah, it's not as quite as cut and dry as what you're probably reading in the 1940 history book. As far as the perspective there.
Well,
So
and how and if you think about when the white man came, what effect it had, the settlers had on the the ecology and microorganisms, and because they're bringing with them diseases that were never here
mhm.
before, the pox, that old mess.
Well, that's
um
that
the,
yeah, in Mesoamerica, that's definitely the case. I mean,
yeah, I mean,
yeah,
they're bringing
yeah,
all these things that
have other
were
things. Yeah.
not existing here, right? And
Hmm.
so you're bringing the diseases, you're bringing you're tearing down forest, you're changing the ecology of everything around you, species elimination. Look at the whole buffalo situation, right? They
Hmm.
eradicated most beavers. Look at the beavers.
Yeah,
Used to be
trade fur
beavers
trade.
all over Indiana. Now you can see one every now and then. They're coming back slow but sure, but I mean they were almost eradicated. So we have changed whole systems. I mean it's pretty amazing
Yeah,
when you go back to
lot to look
actually
into.
looks. It's fascinating.
Yeah, yeah,
As far
definitely.
as changing ecology, I find it fascinating how willing people are to believe that there are endless resources.
Right.
Someone recently gave me pictorial history of Michigan. I also have a pictorial history of Indiana. And learning that when they first discovered natural gas in Indiana, they thought it was an infinite supply, and then it was gone in 20 years.
Mhm.
And basing
Wow.
your economy on that, and then to have it disappear.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that
That's
was like the coal of Eastern Kentucky, right? There's still mines there, but they're closed because, well, we quit using coal. You know, they had steam trains. There was, steam engines for everything, and so people were using coal like there was no tomorrow, and that was the whole um, 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 financial dependence. Everybody in Eastern Kentucky and down in there in Virginia, West Virginia, that was what they depended on for their living, right? That was their job. And then when
Mhm.
that was all taken away, yeah,
Or a lot of it. Yeah.
and there's
Mhm.
not an endless supply of that either. I mean, eventually you're going to run the mines dry and you're going to have to, you know, they're going to
Yeah.
collapse. You're going to have to build more and more and more. But yeah,
Mhm.
basing your whole um, uh, system around
Yeah.
that, something that
Yeah.
is fleeting is that's not a good idea.
No.
It's been proven time and time again, not a good idea.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Mhm.
But and then let's see. As far as the uh, we'll get into some of the things as far as as far as your after dinner conversation story. What was your story about? Because I want to make sure we cover that within the show here.
Oh, thanks for asking. Yeah, so the story is called I Will Not Risk Myself, and it's about when your boundaries personally conflict with someone else's boundaries, how to handle that, and who has more responsibility in certain circumstances. I've been thinking about ethics for a long time, and I feel like ethics exists because people have conflicting boundaries, conflicting wants. It's always going to come back to some people want slash need something, and we have to arbitrate what we do. We live in a pluralistic society, and since the beginning of recorded history, we've always had conflicts. So to have an ethics based system where there's just one answer for every single situation, it's probably not going to happen. And that's kind of part of what didacticism tends to do to a story. It just plugs it up and makes it die because it guides the reader in just one direction. And I think the same thing can kind of happen in real life too. The example in the story is that there's a mother who has struggled with drugs for most of her life. She recently got out of rehab and she's trying to rebuild that part of her life at home. She's got a new boyfriend. Um, and then her daughter, who she's tried to get out of the house because she's a drug dealer and the mom doesn't want to relapse, calls her up and says, "Can you come up and get me a marriage license signed?" Because her daughter is less than 18. So in Indiana, you can get married less than 18, but you need a parent to sign.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, the mother is reluctant to do anything related to her drug dealing daughter, even though her daughter protests she's not doing it anymore. Her daughter says that since she's on probation, she needs an address, and her boyfriend is willing to let her live with him and put her address on the forms if she marries him. So it's a very complicated situation with different cultural norms involved, different personal norms involved. And as the story builds, just like the other ones I described, I hope that some of the tension also builds and the reader starts to understand. Sometimes there's a mother power dynamic where the mother feels like this is certainly my responsibility because this is my child. And other times the mother feels my child is devious. I can't trust them. I need to stay away. So, kind of feeling those emotional pulls, feeling those pulls of circumstance that time can't exactly give you perspective on until it's passed a whole ton. That was what I wanted my readers to feel.
Nice, nice.
It's
And
amazing.
where can folks check out the story? Which edition of the after dinner conversation will it be in? Because you
Yeah,
said you
that would
release about
be
6 a month. You said something like six a
uh,
month. You said. is what you released. So
So,
yeah, I'd ask about where to find it.
yeah, so that would be the February 2024 edition of After Dinner Conversation, February 2024. But it also got put in the Best of 2024 anthology, which was published also, I think, in February 2025. After Dinner Conversation is very aware that we have a lot of readers who want to learn about ethics and just explore the fun stories sometimes. You need to have them entertaining too.
Hmm.
So we are on pretty much every app that a public library has. Um,
Hmm.
so that would be things like Libby, Hoopla. Of course, we're also
Hmm.
on Amazon and Barnes and Noble, other online services, and there are different deals that are generally going on. If you visit afterdinnerconversation.com, there tend to be coupon codes, etc. And you can even get a free copy of After Dinner Conversation. It will probably be a random copy, not something necessarily with my story in it. But if you just put your email address into the website, and again, we're ethical, we don't sell your email address. So if you put your email address into the website and just request a free random copy, you can get one.
Oh,
Nice.
neat.
Yeah, because I definitely want to check this your story out, and I'm interested in some of the other stories because we have talked and we've had programming at our convention about getting messages and themes into your writing without beating you over the head or being too
Right.
preachy. And I think it'd be great to have see a body of work where you really have worked to have that fine line of having ethical elements and themes like that and message based type fiction, but it's done in a way that really engages your mind and delivers rather than the kind that just whacks you over the head. And so I definitely want to check this out. So After Dinner Conversation, folks, you look it up and definitely check out Noelle's story and the others that are there, because it sounds like it's a bit of a clinic too in terms of writing short fiction, that you've got some great pieces there that are good examples of something that we definitely cover on the show and at the convention. So yeah, I did want to give you a shout out for sure there. Now where do you find now I also say this is fun because we had a literary fiction author, Sharon LaCour, who I think is awesome, who plays piano, and it looks like you play piano too. So I'm glad that you find some time between all of your literary endeavors to enjoy music. And yeah, it sounds like you're a classical music enthusiast as well. So I'd love to know just a little bit about your piano playing. Is it just a personal thing, or do you perform publicly, or?
Um, I would say that it's basically a personal thing. I do make recordings. I am tentatively putting them out there.
Nice.
Unfortunately, due to a neuromuscular disorder, I cannot play a piece perfectly. There are always going to be flubs, so it's never going to sound crystal clear perfect. So I'm kind of working on being comfortable with being able to put that out there, even when there are obvious mistakes. So I am very interested in classical music. Obviously, I like to play Beethoven piano sonatas. I like Liszt. I like Bach.
Yes.
But I also really enjoy contemporary music. I love Enya, Sleep Token, Ethel Cain. I've
Nice.
been getting into um, Fleetwood Mac. I went to a Fleetwood Mac memorial
Yes.
concert.
Nice
Oh,
range.
yes.
Nice range. Yeah.
I
I,
also do a lot of improvisation and original arrangements, so that's a really nice way to keep my brain active.
yeah, that's
Yeah, I
that's awesome.
saw that you actually did it was an article, I believe, on Beethoven,
Yes.
and I said, "Oh, she's a we have so much in common because I love the Victorian era. I love those composers." And I was like, "Wow, I Beethoven, Bach, and like Mozart. Mozart is my top, but yes, I love Beethoven and Bach. And Stephen knows when I'm reading,
Mhm,
editing, that's what I'm
mhm.
playing, and
Or
I'm
Norwegian
blaring
folk
it.
music, or she plays
And my
Norwegian folk
yes,
music.
when
Yes,
I'm
she
working during
loves
the
that.
day, I listen to a lot of Norwegian folk music.
Yeah,
I
she does.
love.
She loves that.
Viking
Mhm.
music channels and all that too. But yeah, I find that fascinating that you do enjoy the classical, and I try to instill that in the grandkids, and they're like, "Oh, mammy, that's old music." I said, "Back of the train up, you wouldn't have the music of
Timeless music.
today."
Yeah.
I'm like, "Listen, you wouldn't have the music of today without your older composers, you know."
Well, as I
But
always tell the kids, classical
yeah,
music was the heavy metal of its time. It
it
was the
was.
heavy metal of
Oh,
its
Mozart
time.
and Beethoven,
Absolutely,
most
absolutely.
definitely,
I will stand on that hill. And,
most definitely.
but one fun fact, Noel, I wanna tell you that the first record I ever owned was at age 7, and my parents got me a copy of Rumors, Fleetwood Mac's
Yeah.
Rumors.
Oh my
First album
goodness.
I ever owned as a kid,
Oh
and
my.
so so that was that's a
Yes.
little fun fact. But yeah, it sounds like yeah, you have quite a range. And as far as the with your condition and music, I mean, just think Tony Iommi of Black Sabbath, who's considered one of the greatest godfathers of heavy metal and greatest guitarists of all time, lost all the tips of his fingers in a factory accident. Had all the tips of his fretting fingers cut off in a accident at a factory, and then went on to do what they did, all those years and decades and millions of albums sold. So keep at it and definitely get those recordings out there because yeah, there's definitely we need more good players and composers out there for sure. And if you ever get on vinyl, I'm a vinyl fanatic, so I'll pick up a copy.
Yeah, vinyl is amazing. It sounds
Yeah.
three-dimensional. CDs still sound two-dimensional.
Yep. I argue that all the time with folks.
Yes.
Yes, I'm with you 100%, 100% on that. And but yeah, that's awesome. So yeah, you have to keep us posted on your music pursuits as well. But it's been a great conversation tonight. I've had a lot of fun speaking with you, and we do want to just give you an open. We have covered, I think, most of the things that we were wanting to cover tonight. But is there any area that we haven't covered that you would like to have talked about before we wrap up tonight?
I have a pet topic currently that I'd love to talk a little bit about.
Sure,
Cool.
absolutely.
Yes. So, over the past couple of years, I've been kind of tracing the development of the novel, and currently I don't know, I started, of course, around 1820, and now I'm about 1920. So I'm reading a book series called Pilgrimage. It's by Dorothy Richardson. And apparently, it's the first stream of consciousness literature in the history of the world. And I'm like, why do I always hear about James Joyce, etc., when I hear about stream of consciousness? I did know about other stream of consciousness sorts of writers, such as Clarice Lispector, but to find out that the first person to do it was a woman, and that the term stream of consciousness was actually also coined by another woman novelist to describe it. The lady who coined it was May Sinclair. So I kind of looked back to, oh, so when was any other woman doing something similar to this stream of consciousness stuff? And I was like, Jane Eyre, Charlotte Bronte, first person, lots
Yeah.
of details, lots of description about women's goals, about women's horizons, about how they feel. And even if you go back to the very first novels, kind of like Robinson Crusoe, you have a man's perspective. Yeah, it's kind of from the first person in a lot of cases, or it's epistolary, but it's still very dry. It's still about social conventions. Even when you're reading Jane Austen, sometimes the people are a little bit stiff rather than alive, and Charlotte Bronte did critique that. You can see that Charlotte Bronte was not Jane Austen. So in any case, I'm just really thrilled to find out that women have been so pivotal in developing consciousness and developing literature and developing I guess, a more specific and even in some cases ethical, as I'm looking at the content of these different novels, humanity.
Hmm. Absolutely, absolutely. Holly, what are your
Fascinating.
thoughts? Yeah.
Well, it's
Um,
fascinating, and I've definitely got to look into your future projects that you're working on. You got coming up because, yeah, that's a fascinating topic for me, especially
mhm,
the whole, the whole time period, and like I said, the the pivotal shift forward
mhm,
and women's literature and all of that. They're taking over the men's roost. They're in the men's lane. But they're standing strong, and hey, we're still reading them today, right? So they obviously did something well, and they did it great, and we're still reading it and still enjoying it,
Mhm.
even though our society and our ethics have changed and things are different. We still enjoy reading the old literature, and
Mhm.
and that's beautiful. Just like the music, we still enjoy it. We still enjoy the old master painters, right? So yeah, art is ever evolving,
Well,
but
I think great art's timeless.
good way. It
That's my
is.
feel. Yeah, a
All
really
art, it,
great
it
piece
goes
of art.
across the board. It's
Mhm.
timeless.
And
Totally.
there are ways in which we can bond and relate to
Yep.
people of all ages. I mean, a lot of things that we can. So, yeah, I think that when you
I
find
still
those voices, they
I
still
still
speak
relate to
today.
Poe. As I say,
Yeah.
Edgar Allan Poe, I still relate to Poe very well.
Mhm.
I get where he's coming from in a lot of things. I'm like, yeah, I get you, Poe. So yeah,
Yeah, that's true.
I understand perfectly. And I've got a lot of Poe poetry hanging around. So yeah,
Yes, you do. Yes, you do. We have raven objects and all kinds of things all around the house.
yes.
but
Last
but
year I
now,
went to a birthday party for Edgar Allan Poe at the local bookshop. It was amazing.
Oh,
nice.
nice. That's
You might.
so fun.
It's a good chance you'll bump into Holly at one of those events
Yes.
someday.
Yes.
But
Yes, I love those events. But yeah, where can people find you or people that want to contact you?
yeah,
Your
follow your
links
work.
and all your work and all that good stuff.
Yeah, so I'd say LinkedIn is a really good hub. I think the direct messaging on LinkedIn is really nice.
Uh-huh.
I'm also on Instagram, but again, with Instagram, you get the pictures. So if you want
Mhm.
to have like a really full picture of what I'm like, follow me on Instagram, follow me on LinkedIn, follow me on Blue Sky. Yeah, just follow me everywhere. So, because the Blue
And
Sky
what
is
is
more
your
like the day-to-day stuff, and the LinkedIn has my resume, etc., or the at least selected bibliography, and then Instagram is more like, I don't know, half year updates.
now? I am going to follow you on all three because I'm on all three of those. And so, what is do you know the handle off the top of your head? Because I want to look you up and follow you. So,
Sure. I think I'm probably okay. Instagram, I am
hmm hmm
NoelleCantyInsta. Noelle
great,
Canty Insta on
gotcha.
Instagram.
All right.
I'm pretty sure that on Blue Sky, I have the same handle as my ex Twitter handle. I still have my Twitter up because
Mhm,
I'm clearing out my bookmarks. So that would be
mhm,
at capital Noelle, capital Canty, just my first and last names together.
mhm.
And then LinkedIn should be similar. There are probably some other
Okay.
people in the world named Noelle Canty, but you will probably see by my profile and what I publish that, yeah, it's
Yes.
me.
Yeah. Well. Oh, yes. We'll definitely figure you out because you're one of our people for sure. You're a book person, a writing person. So yeah, that we'll find you for sure. But thank you so much. I'm going to turn it over to Holly, but I want to just
Yes.
thank you for spending time with us tonight. And I hope this is just the first of many more visits to come. And looking forward to reading your story that's in After Dinner Conversation. And I do want to read your Middle West review essay because that sounded really intriguing. So I'm going to be reading some of your work for sure. But thank you for being on the show tonight, and I'll turn it over to Holly to wrap up with you.
Yes. Thank you so much for joining us, Noelle. It's been a fascinating talk. Yeah, you'll definitely have to keep us updated. Don't be a stranger. You're welcome back anytime. You get
Mhm.
some new things out there. You want to talk about some, articles you've done or some things you've looked into, that you found fascinating. Love to chat with you again. It's been great. Thank you.
Holly, thanks so much for reaching out and coordinating this. Stephen, thanks for helping me figure out the platform today.
You're
This
welcome.
was a relatively smooth endeavor. I mean, I've done other sort of similar things here and there, but it's always been extremely bumpy. And so I really appreciate how quick and professional this has been, as well as warm and welcoming.
Well, that makes my day. Thank
Well,
you.
thank you. Thank you so much. Well,
Um,
all out there in listening land, listen for the playback here in a few minutes, and we will be on Spotify and iTunes and Amazon and all those great platforms tomorrow. You can check us out there for the playback if you missed the beginning of the show. Been a great night, unique and interesting topics with Noelle. And please check out her Instagram and her LinkedIn, definitely, because that's where she's most prolific there is LinkedIn. Excuse me. And join us next Wednesday, same time, same place, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Another great guest, another great chat. For the rest of the week, be creative, all. Good night.